let's say that you grew up where your father or mother left at a very young age. Your mother died when you were 6 or so. And you then were taken on by your father and taken on by maybe his sister and maybe your grandmother. And they started taking out the mother's role. They took it on. And you stepped up and took on a lot more accountability because you had to. Your dad took on a little bit more feminine roles or mother's roles or whatever. And your grandmother stepped in. And so, but you end up having, emotional irritations because you were infatuated with your mother and dependent on her. And as a result of it, this now becomes a nightmare because you lost that which you infatuated with, that you depended on. Anything you depend on and infatuate with, you're going to feel the loss of. And if it leaves, you're going to feel grief. Now, grief has nothing to do with anything other than your attachment to that individual that you lost. Because if you resented somebody and they leave, you don't feel grief, you feel relief. So it's your perception that leads to your grief. Now, let's say that your parents don't know the Demartini method and haven't been to the breakthrough experience. And so they see you're distraught by mommy's leaving. And they feel guilty that they can't do anything about it. So they take you to shrink. And the shrink then says, well, the reason you're screwed up is because your mommy left you and you're an abandoned child. And here's the stats. And so you now get programmed this bullshit that's the reason why your problem is there. It's all externally happened. There's nothing you can do about it. Nothing to do with you. You're an innocent little child, little innocent victim, and it had something to do with that event. Well, you just fucked up your life there. You just basically gave this power away and blame this situation for how you feel. And it has nothing to do with that situation. But let's say that somebody comes along like myself and says, okay, at the moment your mommy died, who became taking on all the roles of mommy? What did you miss about mommy, first of all? Who took on the roles? And then we identify quantitatively everybody that took on all the roles. And so nothing was not accounted for. You took on mom, grandma took some, dad took on, sister took something on, your teacher at school took some of it on. And then you realize, oh, I didn't miss anything. There was no void there. It was in another form. But I still fantasize my mommy was a better form. So then I come along and I go, what would have been the drawback if your mommy had done it? What were the drawbacks when your mommy did it? Oh, yeah, she tried to control me. I couldn't do this. And you find the drawbacks of mommy. And then what's the benefits of these new people taking it on? Once the benefits of the new people taking on and the drawbacks of the old mama, the fantasy that you had about your mama is brought back and got grounded in reality because you realize that there's benefits and drawbacks to all those. Once you end up doing that, it's level. And all of a sudden, the entire story, the illusion that there's a void, that there's something missing is gone. I didn't miss a mom. I had a transforming mom. And then when I grew up and moved out of the house, I had another form of a mom. And all my life, I've had different players playing in a matrix of moms, and nothing's ever been missing. The individual that realizes that nothing's ever missing is a liberated individual that's free to dance through life. But the individual that's basically, here's what it's supposed to look like. It's not there. I'm now holding on to my past with a fantasy instead of facing my current reality and looking at the magnificence of the current reality. I'm now going in there and I'm now thinking, oh, I miss a mom. I missed out and I'm screwed up. And my therapist really got me thinking, well, that's the reason I've got all these problems in my life. If I would stay away from people that teach you things like that because they're ignorant. They don't know how life works. It's a magnificent transformation going on all the time. So if you all of a sudden do that and you grow up throughout your life, oh, I missed mom. I had to avoid a mom. Now what you're going to do, you're going to end up probably finding some guy to have a baby with, and you're now going to smother your child because, oh my God, I would never want to leave my kids. And everything you try to avoid, you run into, and everything you seek the fantasy of, you attract things to break that fantasy. So then you try to do it. And then all of a sudden, 20 years later, 30 years later, you realize, oh my God, I'm now in a relationship that's unfulfilling and I have to divorce. And now I have to have custody fights and my husband gets the kids. And now I've abandoned my kids. And then you realize that you're here to, that's all designed to help you make sure you love your mom and realize the form that's there, not sit there and hold on to the fantasies. Nature won't let you escape what you've been deluded about. It's going to force you to face your stuff. So that was an artificial void based on not knowing how to ask the right questions to see it, and left you with a judgment that was stored in your subconscious mind that's now impacting your life, whether you see it or not. And your subconscious mind stores all lopsided perceptions like that. Anything that you saw, you're conscious of the upsides and unconscious of the downsides, or anything you're conscious of the downsides and unconscious of the upsides to, is going to be stored in there, and it's going to create a void. Why? Because if you infatuate with something, you're too humble to admit what you see in them is inside you. You think it's external that you're infatuated with, and you're disowning that part in you, and that's a void. And if you're too proud and looking down on somebody and resenting somebody, you're too proud to admit what you see in them is inside you, and that's a void. And those voids want to be fulfilled until you own all those parts and realize nothing's missing in you. And those determine your values. And your highest value is the most effective and efficient pathway to neutralize that, because it's the one that gives you the most objectivity, which allows you not to judge, allows you to see things more neutral, where you don't fear the loss of it or fear the gain of it. And so you transcend the illusions of philias and phobias, seekings and avoidings, which are the impulses and instincts of the amygdala and lower animal mind. You liberate yourself with moksha and liberation and satori and nirvana, or you want to call it, because you have the capacity to transcend those conscious blocks. And when you do, you have your highest value is one of the most significant things. It's the accessing gateway to the transcendental awareness, where you see things neither good nor evil. And so you don't have the fear of loss of that which is good and fear of gain of that which is evil, because the entire moral construct that you're hypocritically trapped in is a delusion. Because if you try to get a one-sided magnet, try to get rid of the other side of the magnet, it's futile. The same thing with these cockamamie moral constructs that ignorant people impose on people as an exploitation of people that are living in that animal behavior, trap people in these things which we call limited beliefs. I'm just warming up now.